The grand hall of the Xyranth Imperial Palace stretched endlessly above, its high ceilings glimmering with soft golden light. Towering crystal columns lined the edges of the room, each carved with alien symbols that pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. Hundreds of figures moved through the hall, their forms strange to human eyes, some with elongated limbs, others with translucent skin that shimmered as they walked. Yet among all the aliens, one human walked calmly, his stride steady, eyes sharp and expression unshaken. Ethan Ryland, Earth's ambassador, had prepared for this day for months. The invitation to the Interstellar Council was rare. Humans had only recently begun to take a seat at the galactic table, and every move Ethan made would be under scrutiny, not just by aliens, but by his own people back on Earth. He adjusted, his dark suit, the only clothing he could wear that was acceptable under Xyranthian custom, and walked forward with confidence. The council chamber was buzzing. Aliens from countless worlds had gathered, each proud of their technology, their history, and their achievements. The center of attention, naturally, was the Xyranth royal family. At the far end of the hall stood Prince Valthor, heir to the Xyranth Empire. His form was tall and elegant, covered in flowing robes of deep violet embroidered with metallic threads. His eyes glowed faintly blue, a sign of nobility among his kind. As Ethan approached, he could feel the weight of the room pressing down on him. Many of the aliens whispered among themselves, some with curiosity, others with thinly veiled disdain. Humans were still new to this level of diplomacy. To most of these creatures, humans were fragile, simple, and unremarkable. The ceremony began, with a flourish of sound. Crystal instruments played a strange melody that resonated with the hall's columns, creating vibrations that tickled the bones. One by one, ambassadors from various civilizations approached the prince, offering their greetings and bows. Ethan waited his turn, watching as the ceremony unfolded like a ritualistic dance. When the moment came, Ethan stepped forward. He offered the standard greeting of respect, bowing slightly, not out of submission but as a sign of diplomacy. Prince Valthor's eyes scanned him, cool and calculating. Then, with a tilt of his head, he smiled, a smile that did not reach his eyes. "Ah," Valthor said, his voice carrying through the hall with a silken sharpness. "And here is the human, the fragile little creature who dares to call himself a representative of a world that barely knows the stars." A murmur rippled through the assembly. Some of the aliens chuckled softly. Others glanced at each other in surprise. Ethan froze for just a fraction of a second, not because he was shocked, but because he understood exactly what had happened. Valthor had insulted him. Not in private, not subtly, but publicly, in front of the council. It was meant to humiliate, to remind everyone present that humans were nothing more than fledglings in the vast galaxy. Ethan felt a heat rise in his chest, but he refused to react. He had been trained for moments like this. He did not raise his voice. He did not show anger. He did not try to argue or defend humanity. Instead, he did something far more powerful. He turned and walked away. The room fell silent. Every eye followed him. Some aliens were confused, expecting a rebuttal, a sharp retort, or even a display of fear. But Ethan moved with calm precision, each step measured. His back was straight, his head high. Without a single word, he left the prince and the council behind. Valthor's smile faltered for the briefest instant, a crack in the carefully maintained mask of superiority. He was not used to being ignored. He had intended to provoke a reaction, to see anger, embarrassment, or fear in the human's eyes. Instead, Ethan had given him nothing, only silence, dignity, and control. Outside the main hall, Ethan paused, for a moment. The corridors were quieter, the light softer. He allowed himself a small breath, steadying his mind. He did not need to speak to assert his value. His composure in that moment spoke louder than any words could. Later, the council would discuss the human ambassador with confusion and curiosity. Some would admire him for his restraint. Others would dismiss him as weak. But Ethan knew the truth. Humans had power, not in flashy displays or advanced weapons, but in their ability to endure, to observe, and to act with reason and courage. When it truly mattered, the rest of the ceremony continued without incident. But Ethan's silent walk remained the most talked about moment. Ambassadors whispered in corners, debating what it meant. The humans, they said, were strange. But there was something undeniable about them. A calm strength that could not be ignored. After the council, Ethan returned to his quarters. He allowed himself a private smile. He had planted a seed, the seed of respect. Even Valthor, the young prince, would remember this moment. Not because of anger, not because of retaliation, but because of the quiet, unwavering confidence of a single human. In the days that followed, the story of the human who had walked away spread slowly through the palace. Some laughed at him behind closed doors, calling him timid or foolish. Others, quietly, began to reconsider their assumptions about humans. Could it be that these fragile creatures were more resilient than they appeared? More cunning? More determined? Ethan did not concern himself with their opinions. He focused on his work, on building connections, and on observing the intricate politics of the Xeranth Empire. Every conversation, every gesture, every decision he made was measured, deliberate. Humans had come far in a short time, and he intended to show that they were not to be underestimated. Meanwhile, Kama Valthor watched from his chambers. He replayed the moment again and again in his mind. The human's slow turn, the quiet walk, the refusal to acknowledge the insult. It gnawed at him. He had underestimated humans, perhaps for the first time in his life. And that thought, though he would never admit it aloud, unsettled him deeply. For Ethan, the insult of that day became a quiet motivation. He did not seek revenge, nor did he harbor bitterness. Instead, he understood something essential. True strength was not in words or anger, but in action, restraint, and the long game. By walking away, he had shown the universe that humans were not easily provoked, that their dignity was unshakable, and that their potential could not be measured by appearances alone. Years later, historians would look back on this moment and mark it as the beginning of humanity's rise among the stars. They would remember the human ambassador who had faced the most powerful prince of the galaxy and refused to fight on the prince's terms. They would remember the silent power of restraint. And while the galaxy would change, wars would come, and alliances would shift, the memory of Ethan Ryland's walk remained. A symbol of humanity's quiet, unyielding strength. Ethan himself did not care for fame or legend. He cared for results, for the survival and dignity of his people. But in that small, silent gesture, he had made a statement that would echo across the stars for decades to come. Humans might be underestimated, mocked, and dismissed, but they could endure, adapt, and rise beyond expectation. As the sun of Xeranth's twin stars set, casting a warm glow across the palace, Ethan looked out over the alien city below. He did not smile for the buildings nor for the people who watched him from afar. He smiled for the human spirit, resilient, patient, and unbreakable. And deep down, he knew that this was only the beginning of what humanity could achieve among the stars. The walk was silent, the insult forgotten by many. But for those who understood, it was a lesson that would never be erased. Humans, in their quiet dignity, had already begun to write their own place in the galaxy. 23 years had passed since Ethan Ryland, the human ambassador, had walked away from the Xeranth prince without a word. In that time, the galaxy had changed in ways many could not have imagined. Alliances shifted, wars erupted in distant star systems, and technology advanced at a pace that even the Xeranth Empire struggled to keep up with. And yet, through it all, humans had quietly grown stronger, cleverer, and more capable than most. Aliens realized. Ethan himself had not changed much. His hair had streaks of silver now, and his face bore faint lines from years of travel, negotiation, and observation. But his posture remained straight, his gaze sharp, and his mind as keen as ever. Humans had built a presence across the stars not through domination, but through ingenuity, resourcefulness, and adaptability. and Ethan had played a pivotal role in this transformation. On a remote observation deck aboard the human flagship, Aurora, Ethan reviewed the latest reports from the frontier. Sensors had detected unusual activity in a neighboring system. A rogue alien coalition led by the Coralath was building a fleet capable of destabilizing entire planets. These were not mere raiders. They were methodical, organized, and ruthless. If left unchecked, they could challenge the fragile balance of the galaxy. Ethan's mind worked quickly. He had studied alien tactics for decades, analyzing patterns, predicting outcomes, and calculating risks. Yet, even he recognized that this threat required more than brute force. It required creativity, coordination, and a deep understanding of both humans and aliens. And humans, in their quiet way, had perfected these qualities. The Aurora's crew bustled around him, preparing for a diplomatic mission that might determine the fate of several systems. Humans had learned to work with aliens when necessary, forming alliances that leveraged each species' strengths. But unlike the Xyranths, who relied on tradition, hierarchy, and sheer technology, humans thrived in unpredictability. They could improvise, adapt, and respond in ways that no rigid protocol could anticipate. Meanwhile, across the galaxy on Xyranth Prime, Prince Valthor, now Emperor Valthor, sat on his throne, a tall and imposing figure draped in royal robes. His eyes, once youthful and bright, now carried the weight of decades of rule. Despite his accomplishments, a shadow of unease lingered in his mind. The memory of the human ambassador who had walked away 23 years ago had never truly left him. At first, Valthor had dismissed the incident as inconsequential, a fleeting moment that proved nothing. But over the years, reports of human ingenuity and resilience had begun to accumulate. Humans had become indispensable in trade, diplomacy, and even military strategy. And now, as the Coralath threat grew, Valthor found himself in a difficult position. He could not ignore humans. In fact, he needed them. Their capacity to think creatively, their ability to improvise in high-pressure situations, and their moral clarity made them more than mere allies. They were the key to survival. And yet, pride kept Valthor from reaching out openly. He could not forget the slight, the silent walk, the calm defiance that had shaken his youthful arrogance. "Your Majesty," a Xyranthian aide said, bowing low, "our intelligence reports indicate that human forces are already in the Coralath system. They have established defensive positions and are coordinating with other species. Their strategy, it is unconventional, but effective." Valthor leaned forward, fingers steepled. "Unconventional?" he asked. "Explain." The aide hesitated, clearly aware that speaking plainly could be dangerous. "Humans do not follow the typical rules of engagement, sire. They anticipate enemy moves based on reasoning, intuition, and observation. Their plans adapt in real time. Conventional fleets would expect predictable maneuvers, but humans, they create solutions that seem impossible to predict." Valthor's expression darkened. 23 years ago, he had believed humans were fragile, primitive, and easily intimidated. And now, decades later, he was forced to acknowledge a truth he had not anticipated. Humans were not only resilient, they were brilliant. Their intelligence was not mechanical or rigid. It was alive, adaptive, and uniquely powerful. Meanwhile, aboard the Aurora, Ethan had already deployed small teams to the Coralath system. Each mission was carefully planned, yet flexible enough to respond to unexpected developments. Humans had mastered the art of improvisation, not relying solely on technology or brute force, but on understanding their environment, the people around them, and the situation as a whole. One team, led by Captain Mira Sol, had infiltrated a Coralath supply station. Using a combination of stealth, quick thinking, and creative problem-solving, they disabled the station's defenses without a single casualty. The Coralath were baffled. Their advanced sensors, traps, and security measures were designed for conventional attacks, not the kind of unpredictable strategies humans employed. Back on the Aurora, Ethan watched the live feeds, nodding silently. He did not need to celebrate victories. Humans did not seek recognition in moments like these. Their pride was quiet, their purpose clear. But the results spoke for themselves. Entire systems were being stabilized, lives were being saved, and alliances were strengthening, all because humans had chosen to act wisely, creatively, and decisively. Across the galaxy, Emperor Valthor studied these reports with growing unease. The human advantage was undeniable. Every calculated move, every innovative solution, every life saved reminded him of his own underestimation decades ago. And while he maintained his composure in public, internally, he wrestled with a mix of respect, regret, and fascination. It was not only strategy that humans excelled at. Their ability to inspire trust, negotiate with clarity, and form coalitions was unlike anything Valthor had encountered. Where alien civilizations relied on rigid hierarchy and authority, humans relied on reason, empathy, and collaboration. It was a power that could not be measured by technology or military strength alone. One evening, Ethan convened a meeting with representatives of allied species. The room was filled with holographic maps, tactical projections, and communications from distant fleets. Yet the humans in the room remained calm, attentive, and deliberate. "We must anticipate not just the Coralath fleet," Ethan said, pointing to a sector on the map, "but their strategy. They expect us to react predictably. We will do the opposite. We will move where they least expect, protect what they assume is unimportant, and disrupt their coordination. We do not need to fight on their terms. We will fight on ours." His words were simple, clear, and unembellished. Yet everyone in the room understood the meaning. Humans would lead not with force alone, but with intelligence, creativity, and courage. Days later, the first engagement with the Coralath fleet occurred. Humans led a coalition of allied ships, not charging recklessly, but maneuvering strategically using diversion tactics, rapid adaptations, and coordinated strikes. Where the Coralath expected rigidity, they found flexibility. Where they expected fear, they found calm resolve. Human ingenuity turned the tide, securing a crucial victory without unnecessary loss of life. The news reached Valthor, who watched silently from the Imperial Palace. He could not ignore the human advantage. Their ability to think beyond rigid rules, to adapt, and to act with moral clarity was unmatched. And while he still carried the memory of their encounter 23 years ago, he now realized that their greatest power was not their physical presence, but their mind, their strategy, and their spirit. Valthor understood finally why Ethan had walked away all those years ago. It had been a lesson in restraint, in patience, in confidence. Humans had not reacted with anger or desperation. They had chosen their moment, and decades later they were proving that patience, intelligence, and adaptability could be far more powerful than pride or aggression. For Ethan, these years of growth and quiet influence were not about proving a point to Valthor, though the Emperor's recognition was inevitable. It was about ensuring humanity's place in the galaxy, not through domination, but through skill, cooperation, and moral integrity. Humans had learned to survive, to thrive, and to lead without arrogance. They had turned every slight, every doubt, every insult into motivation, a demonstration that even when underestimated, humans could rise to extraordinary heights. By the time the Coralath threat was neutralized, humans had earned a reputation not only as capable warriors, but as indispensable strategists, negotiators, and thinkers. They had proven that their value extended far beyond what any alien had imagined 23 years ago. And in a quiet moment, as he looked out over the stars from the aurora, Ethan reflected on the path that had brought them here. The insult from Valthor had not been forgotten. It had been remembered carefully as a lesson in how humans could respond to arrogance. They had chosen not to react impulsively, not to allow emotion to dictate action. Instead, they had acted with foresight, intelligence, and moral clarity. The galaxy had begun to notice, slowly at first, then with growing respect. Humans were no longer the fragile creatures of legend. They were innovators, leaders, and problem solvers. And while Valthor and other alien leaders wrestled with their own pride, humanity quietly continued to rise, proving that true strength lay not in intimidation, technology, or brute force, but in resilience, creativity, and the courage to act wisely when it mattered most. 20-3 years after a single silent walk. The war with the Koralath had ended, but the galaxy was far from peaceful. Strange signals echoed from the outer systems, new factions, new dangers, and new mysteries. Yet, despite the uncertainty, humans had earned respect, not just for their courage or technology, but for the way they thought, planned, and acted. And now, Emperor Valthor, who had once insulted Ethan Ryland, found himself forced into an uneasy alliance with the humans once more. Valthor did not like it. He had spent 23 years building his empire, relying on discipline, hierarchy, and the immense power of Xeranthian fleets. Humans, with their unpredictable methods and stubborn independence, unsettled him. But he had no choice. A threat had emerged on the frontier planet of Talaris, a rogue artificial intelligence from a long-dead civilization that was reactivating old war machines and threatening multiple systems. The Xeranth fleet was powerful. But the machines of Talaris were unlike anything the Empire had faced. Conventional tactics would fail. Valthor had watched humans neutralize complex threats before. Reluctantly, he decided to accompany them. Ethan Ryland received the message aboard the flagship Aurora without surprise. He had expected Valthor to appear. The Emperor's pride made it impossible for him to delegate without direct oversight. Ethan calmly acknowledged the message, sending back coordinates for the Talaris system. When Valthor arrived, his presence dominated the bridge. The Xeranth Emperor was taller, his robes flowing like liquid night and his eyes glowed with intelligence and command. Yet, even in his power, there was tension. He did not trust humans fully. And perhaps in some quiet corner of his mind, he was still haunted by that day 23 years ago. Ambassador Ryland, Valthor said, his tone measured. I expect results. We cannot fail. The Xeranth fleet's honor is at stake. Ethan inclined his head politely. We do not plan to fail, Your Majesty, but we will approach this situation differently than you might expect. Conventional tactics alone will not succeed. We need strategy, observation, and flexibility. Valthor's lips tightened. Humans were always different, always calm, always thinking. He had expected arrogance or fear or pleading. He had expected words. He had not expected competence. The Talaris system was a dangerous place. Dead planets orbited the dying sun. Fragments of old wars scattered across asteroid fields. The rogue AI had reactivated several ancient defense installations, turning them into deadly fortresses. Sensors on the Aurora detected strange energy pulses, signs of weapons far more advanced than current Xeranth technology. Ethan studied the map projected on the bridge table, pointing to one of the fortified installations. This is the primary hub, he said. It controls the others. If we disable it, the rest will lose coordination, but it is heavily guarded and shielded. Direct attack will fail. Valthor scowled. Then how do you propose to succeed? Ethan smiled faintly, not arrogantly, but with calm certainty. We do not attack head-on. We analyze, observe, and exploit weaknesses. Humans have a way of seeing patterns where others see chaos. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. Patterns, chaos, observation. That was human thinking. Unpredictable, unorthodox, dangerous in its own way. The plan was set. Humans would lead a small team to infiltrate the primary hub, while Valthor's fleet provided support from orbit. Captain Mira Sol, a seasoned human officer, led the infiltration team, which included both humans and allied species skilled in technical operations. As the shuttle approached the hub, Ethan's team encountered their first challenge: automated defenses that adapted in real time. Energy barriers, drones, and traps shifted with every move. Traditional Xeranth tactics, overwhelm with force, would have failed instantly. But the humans moved differently. They observed, adapted, and improvised. Mirasol directed her team with calm precision. Drone left side, she whispered. Redirect the signal, then disable it from the flank. Ethan, we need your input on the barrier sequencing. Ethan leaned over the console, eyes scanning patterns in the energy pulses. Sequence is cyclical. Use the gap at 0.4 seconds. Step through, then redirect the secondary pulse to trigger the decoy. The team moved with synchronized efficiency, blending observation, intuition, and technical skill. The hub's defenses were formidable, but humans had learned to see possibilities where others saw only danger. They advanced without unnecessary confrontation, neutralizing threats with minimal force and no casualties. Meanwhile, in orbit, Valthor watched the operation unfold through live feeds. He saw the humans approach problems differently, never rushing, never panicking, always thinking. They adapted to unexpected traps, communicated silently through gestures and subtle signals, and made decisions based on observation and reasoning rather than hierarchy or protocol. For the first time in decades, Valthor felt unease. Humans were not predictable. They were not arrogant. They were not weak. They were something else entirely. Something that could not be measured by traditional metrics of power. The team reached the core of the hub. Ancient machines hummed with energy. Weapons primed for activation. The AI controlling them had calculated countless outcomes, yet it had not accounted for human unpredictability. Ethan studied the main console, analyzing data and control sequences. Here's the weak point, he said. The AI relies on a feedback loop. If we disrupt it at 3 points simultaneously, it will shut down long enough for us to secure control. But timing is critical. Mira nodded. We're ready. Everyone in position. They executed the plan with perfect timing. 3 points were disrupted simultaneously. The AI faltered, systems faltered, and energy surged dangerously. The humans moved quickly, stabilizing the controls and shutting down the rogue mechanisms. In a tense moment, a miscalculation could have triggered destruction across the system, but Ethan's foresight prevented it. The operation succeeded. The AI was neutralized, the hub secured, and the outer system stabilized. Humans had demonstrated, once again, that their strength lay not in force but in intelligence, observation, adaptability, and calm decision-making under pressure. Valthor, observing from orbit, could not deny it. Humans had passed the test. They had handled a situation that alien fleets, relying solely on technology and brute force, would have failed. Their ability to think independently, improvise, and act morally made them uniquely powerful. Later, in a quiet chamber aboard the Aurora, Ethan and Valthor spoke alone. The tension between them was palpable. You have a way of thinking that is different from any alien I have known, Valthor said cautiously. I do not understand it fully. You plan, anticipate, adapt, and yet you remain calm in the face of danger. It is unsettling. Ethan smiled faintly. It is not meant to unsettle, Your Majesty. Humans have learned that emotion and pride often cloud judgment. We rely on observation, reasoning, and understanding. That is our advantage. Valthor's gaze fell. He remembered that day 23 years ago when the human ambassador had simply turned and walked away from insult. At the time, he had thought it weakness. Now he realized it had been a quiet demonstration of the same principles he had just witnessed in action. Restraint, intelligence, and confidence. Perhaps, Valthor said quietly. I underestimated your people and you personally all those years ago. Ethan inclined his head not in triumph but with dignity. Underestimation is a mistake easily corrected, Your Majesty. But it is not our goal to prove superiority. It is our goal to act wisely and responsibly. Humans have learned that lasting influence comes from knowledge, cooperation, and the courage to act when it matters most. The Emperor remained silent, reflecting on the human advantage. For decades, he had relied on strength, technology, and authority. Yet here was a species that could achieve what the mightiest fleets could not, through intelligence, collaboration, and moral clarity. Humans had passed the test, and in doing so, had demonstrated a quiet power that commanded respect. In The following weeks, humans continued to secure systems, neutralize threats, and form alliances. Their reputation as innovators and problem solvers spread quickly. The story of Talaris became legendary among allied species, a testament to human ingenuity and calm under pressure. Valthor observed these developments with a mixture of pride, awe, and unease. He could not deny the human advantage, and though his pride resisted acknowledgement, he began to see that humans were not just allies, they were essential partners. The lessons of 23 years ago had come full circle. And for Ethan, the mission was not about proving humans superior to aliens. It was about demonstrating that humans could act wisely, effectively, and morally in a galaxy that often valued strength over strategy. By passing this test, humans had earned respect, influence, and a place among the stars, not through force alone, but through intellect, adaptability, and integrity. As the Aurora moved away from the Talaris system, Ethan looked out at the stars. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers, mysteries, and opportunities. Humans had proven they could meet those challenges, not by arrogance or aggression, but by thinking, observing, and acting with courage. The test had been passed. The human advantage was undeniable, and as long as humans maintained their principles, the galaxy would never underestimate them again. The frontier planet of Iridion glowed under a pale orange sun, its barren desert stretching endlessly into jagged mountains and deep canyons. It was a dangerous world, abandoned centuries ago after a catastrophic war, yet now it had become the center of a new threat. A rogue alien faction, the Dravari, had taken control of the planet, using its natural defenses to build a fortress filled with advanced weapons. If left unchecked, their technology could destabilize the entire sector. Ethan Ryland stood aboard the human flagship Aurora, looking at the holographic projection of Iridion's terrain. His expression was calm, precise, but his mind raced with possibilities. Humans had faced impossible situations before, and now the stakes were higher than ever. One miscalculation could lead to disaster for thousands of lives and countless worlds. Emperor Valthor's flagship hovered nearby, a massive vessel adorned with the sigils of the Xyrenth Empire. The Emperor himself had joined this mission, insisting on observing the human strategy firsthand. He had come to respect their abilities, but old pride still stirred within him. He had underestimated humans once, and he was determined not to appear vulnerable again. "We will need a two-pronged approach," Ethan said to his team. "A direct distraction to draw attention, while a smaller unit infiltrates the main control hub. Timing and coordination are everything. Mistakes will be costly." Captain Mirasol nodded. "We're ready, Ambassador. The team is trained and prepared." Valthor watched silently, his eyes narrowing. Humans were precise, but he still questioned their methods. They relied on intuition as much as planning, a concept alien leaders rarely understood. The first phase began. Human and allied forces engaged the Dravari defenses along the outer perimeter. Laser batteries flared, robotic sentries responded, and the ground shook with artillery fire. Yet the humans moved differently than Valthor expected. They did not charge recklessly, nor did they retreat in fear. They adapted, using cover, diversions, and clever maneuvers to minimize losses while advancing steadily. From the observation deck of the Aurora, Ethan coordinated movements, analyzing every response from the Dravari. He anticipated their strategies before they even enacted them. Humans had an advantage the aliens could not understand. They could read patterns, adjust, and innovate in real time. Meanwhile, the infiltration team approached the control hub through hidden canyons. Sensors picked up Dravari patrols, traps, and surveillance drones, yet the humans navigated with near-perfect timing. Mirasol directed her squad with subtle gestures, guiding them past detection zones. Inside the control hub, the team faced their first challenge, a massive security gate, sealed with alien encryption and reinforced with energy shields. Conventional attempts to force entry would have failed, but humans thrived where technology alone could not. Ethan studied the security sequence remotely, analyzing patterns and timing. The shield pulses in a repeating cycle, he said. "We can slip through during the fifth pulse, then reroute the feedback to confuse the sensors. Once inside, we'll have access to the main control console." The team executed the plan flawlessly. They entered the hub without triggering alarms, neutralizing drones and automated defenses with precision. Their movements were silent but deliberate, their minds aligned with both logic and intuition. Back outside, the battle raged. Dravari forces, expecting conventional human tactics, were baffled. The coordinated distraction worked perfectly. Human and allied forces drew the enemy's attention, creating chaos in the outer defenses, while the infiltration team moved deeper into the fortress. Inside the control hub, Ethan and Mirasol reached the main console. It hummed with energy, controlling the entire fortress. Shields, weapons, communication systems, and environmental controls. The Dravari AI governing the hub was advanced, adaptive, and deadly. Any mistake could trigger a chain reaction that would destroy the facility and countless lives. Ethan studied the AI's system. "It relies on a feedback loop," he said. "If we disrupt it simultaneously in 3 locations, we can shut it down long enough to seize control. But timing is critical. 1 second off and the system will retaliate." Mirasol nodded. "We can do it. Everyone ready?" They executed the plan. 3 critical points were disabled at once, and the AI faltered. Energy surged dangerously. Alarms blared, and the hub's defenses began to malfunction. The humans worked quickly, stabilizing the system and gaining control. The Dravari's fortress, once a seemingly insurmountable stronghold, was now under human command. Valthor observed the operation from his flagship. For the first time, he felt something unfamiliar: awe. Humans had handled an impossible situation with intelligence, strategy, and calm precision. Their decisions were not just reactive. They were proactive, anticipating problems and solving them before they became crises. He remembered that day 23 years ago when Ethan had walked away from his insult. At the time, Valthor had considered it weakness, a lack of courage. Now he saw it for what it truly was: confidence, patience, and quiet strength. Humans did not need to prove themselves through anger or aggression. They proved themselves through action, intelligence, and integrity. As the Dravari surrendered, Ethan addressed the combined forces. "We do not fight for glory. We fight to protect life, to preserve peace, and to ensure that the galaxy can prosper. Our strength lies not in domination, but in understanding, in innovation, and in cooperation." The words carried weight. Even Valthor felt their impact. Humans had won not through sheer power, but through ingenuity, courage, and moral clarity. They had turned a deadly situation into a decisive victory, earning the respect of allies and enemies alike. After the operation, Valthor requested a private audience with Ethan. In the quiet of the Aurora's observation deck, the 2 men stood, facing the stars. "You have shown me humans are unlike any species I have known," Valthor said carefully. "You think, adapt, and act with a clarity that is unsettling. I underestimated you, and I underestimated you personally all those years ago." Ethan inclined his head. "Respect is earned through actions, not words. Humans have learned that true strength comes from patience, intelligence, and integrity. That is how we survive, thrive, and lead." Valthor was silent, contemplating the truth in Ethan's words. He realized that the human advantage was not just technology or physical ability. It was their mind, their adaptability, and their courage. In a galaxy filled with prideful and rigid civilizations, humans could see possibilities others could not. The turning point had arrived. Humans were no longer underestimated. Their reputation as innovators, problem solvers, and leaders was now undeniable. Valthor, once proud and dismissive, began to understand that humans had achieved what many thought impossible. They had proven their worth not through dominance, but through intelligence, foresight, and moral courage. In the days following the Iridian mission, humans continued to stabilize systems, negotiate alliances, and neutralize threats. Their influence spread, not through conquest, but through competence and wisdom. Every challenge they faced became a testament to their ingenuity, and every victory reinforced the lesson that humans were a species unlike any other. Ethan Ryland, ever calm and observant, watched the galaxy from the aurora. He did not seek praise or recognition. His goal was simple: ensure humanity's survival, dignity, and place among the stars. But with each mission, with each challenge overcome, the galaxy's perception of humans shifted. They were no longer fragile, underestimated creatures. They were leaders, innovators, and problem-solvers. Valthor Kama, now humbled and enlightened, understood the lesson of 23 years ago. Ethan's silent walk had been more than a refusal to argue. It had been a demonstration of human strength, patience, and confidence. And now, after witnessing humans in action, Valthor acknowledged it fully. The turning point was complete. Humanity's quiet power had been revealed to the galaxy, and even the proudest emperor could not ignore it. Humans had not only survived, they had risen, proving that intelligence, courage, and moral clarity were more powerful than pride, arrogance, or brute force. As the aurora departed Iridian, leaving behind a stabilized planet and a grateful coalition, Ethan reflected on the journey. The galaxy was vast and filled with challenges, but humans had shown that they could meet them. Through intelligence, adaptability, and integrity, they had earned respect and influence. The turning point was not a battle, nor a declaration, nor a display of force. It was a demonstration of what humans had always been capable of: calm, intelligent, and courageous action in the face of impossible odds. And in that moment, the galaxy began to see humanity in a new light, one that even Emperor Valthor could not deny. The interstellar council chamber on Xeranth Prime glimmered under the soft light of hundreds of energy crystals. Aliens from countless civilizations had gathered, some curious, some wary, and some openly skeptical of humanity's rising influence. But this time the atmosphere was different. Humans were no longer seen as fragile or inexperienced. They were respected, even admired. Ethan Ryland entered the chamber calmly, his dark suit sharp and clean, his posture straight, and his eyes steady. Behind him, the human delegation followed, each member carrying the quiet confidence that had become their hallmark. They had faced impossible challenges, defeated threats no one else could, and proven that humans were more than capable of leading and protecting. At the far end of the chamber, Emperor Valthor stood. The years had tempered his pride, but his presence still commanded attention. Yet even he felt a subtle change in himself. He had seen humanity in action, witnessed their intelligence, creativity, and moral courage firsthand. He could no longer deny the truth. Humans were extraordinary. Ambassador Ryland, Valthor said, his tone formal but respectful, you and your people have demonstrated qualities that are remarkable. Your achievements are beyond what any of us expected. Ethan inclined his head, acknowledging the compliment with quiet dignity. Thank you, Your Majesty. Humans have always believed that intelligence, patience, and cooperation are more powerful than arrogance or brute force. We act not to dominate, but to preserve, to protect, and to build a future for all. A murmur passed through the council chamber. Aliens whispered among themselves, some nodding in agreement, others exchanging surprised glances. The human approach was unusual, even revolutionary. They did not boast, they did not threaten, yet their influence had grown. They had earned respect, not through power alone, but through wisdom, creativity, and integrity. Valthor gestured toward the council. It is clear that humanity has earned a place among the galaxy's leaders. Their strategies, their adaptability, and their courage are unmatched. I propose we recognize their contributions and formally include them as full members of the Interstellar Council. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some species voiced concerns, hesitant to accept humans fully, while others praised their achievements and urged recognition. But the evidence was undeniable. Humans had neutralized rogue factions, negotiated alliances, and solved crises that had stumped the most advanced civilizations. They were no longer outsiders. They were leaders. Ethan stepped forward, addressing the council with calm authority. We do not seek dominance and we do not seek to control others. Humans seek only cooperation, understanding, and the preservation of life. We have learned from every species, every challenge, and every encounter. Our strength lies not in intimidation, but in observation, reasoning, and the courage to act when it matters most. His words resonated. The council members listened carefully, some nodding slowly, others exchanging approving glances. Humans spoke simply, clearly, and honestly, a stark contrast to the usual political rhetoric and pomp that filled these chambers. Their integrity was palpable, their confidence quiet, but undeniable. Valthor watched Ethan closely. He remembered the day 23 years ago when the young human ambassador had walked away from an insult, saying nothing. At the time, Valthor had thought it weakness, a lack of courage or conviction. Now he understood. That silent walk had been a demonstration of restraint, confidence, and dignity, a lesson in the quiet strength that humans possessed. The council debate continued. But the decision was already clear. Humans had proven themselves repeatedly. They had solved problems that had confounded even the most advanced species. They had acted with intelligence, moral clarity, and courage. And most importantly, they had done so without arrogance, without violence beyond necessity, and without undermining others. By the end of the council session, the resolution was unanimous. Humanity was formally recognized as a key member of the Interstellar Council, a species whose wisdom, ingenuity, and moral integrity would guide the future of the galaxy alongside the most advanced civilizations. After the formalities, Ethan and Valthor found themselves alone in a quiet chamber overlooking the city of Zirenth Prime. The twin suns were setting, casting a warm glow over the spires and towers, painting the sky with hues of orange and gold. "You have done what I could not have imagined, Ambassador," Valthor said softly. "Humans are extraordinary. I underestimated your people and I underestimated you. That day, 23 years ago, you walked away from my insult. At the time, I thought it a mistake. Now I see it was a lesson I should have learned." Ethan nodded. "Respect is earned, Your Majesty, not demanded. Humans have learned that patience, intelligence, and moral courage are far more powerful than pride or anger. That lesson begins with action, not words." Valthor studied him, a flicker of humility in his eyes. "It seems I still have much to learn." Ethan allowed himself a faint smile. "We all do. The galaxy is vast and no one species can claim complete understanding. But together, by respecting each other's strengths, we can build a future that benefits all." Outside, the council chamber continued its work, but the story of humanity's rise had already spread across the stars. From distant star systems to the corridors of interstellar politics, humans were now recognized as a species capable of wisdom, courage, and leadership. They had turned every underestimation, every slight, and every doubt into a testament of their potential. Meanwhile, humans on Earth observed the developments from afar. For decades they had trained, learned, and grown quietly. They had faced skepticism, prejudice, and the challenges of being a new species on the galactic stage. And now, their efforts had been acknowledged. Humanity's place among the stars was secure, not through dominance but through intelligence, cooperation, and moral clarity. Ethan reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From the silent walk in the Zirenth Council 23 years ago, to the victory on Iridian and the recognition by the Interstellar Council, humans had proven their worth. Their strength was not in intimidation or aggression, but in their ability to think, adapt, and act wisely in every situation. He looked out at the stars, knowing this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, full of challenges, opportunities, and mysteries. But humans had demonstrated that they could face these challenges with courage, intelligence, and integrity. They had become leaders not by force, but by their ability to understand, innovate, and act with purpose. And as the twin suns of Zirenth Prime set completely, casting long shadows across the city, Valthor approached him once more. "Ambassador Ryland, your people have changed the galaxy, and in doing so they have changed me. I will never underestimate humans again." Ethan inclined his head. We do not seek your acknowledgement, Your Majesty, but your respect, earned through observation and experience, means much. It shows that humanity's way, through intelligence, patience, and moral courage, can stand among the stars. Valthor smiled faintly, a rare gesture for the proud emperor. Indeed. Perhaps 23 years from now we will look back and understand that moment, not as an insult, but as the beginning of something greater. Ethan allowed himself a final glance around the council chamber. The galaxy had changed, and humanity had risen, not through arrogance, not through dominance, but through action, wisdom, and integrity. They had earned their place, and nothing could take that away. And in the quiet of the chamber, the legacy of a silent walk 23 years ago became clear. It had been the first step in a journey that would transform the perception of humans across the galaxy. They were not fragile, not primitive, not weak. They were a species defined by intelligence, courage, and moral strength. The galaxy had learned to respect them. And humanity, ever patient and ever vigilant, would continue to rise, proving time and again that their true power lay not in violence or intimidation, but in the quiet, unyielding strength of the human spirit. As the stars twinkled beyond the chamber's windows, Ethan Ryland knew that humanity's story had only begun. The silent walk of 23 years ago had set the stage. The victories, the alliances, and the recognition had confirmed it. And the future, vast, unpredictable, and full of challenges, awaited a species ready to meet it. Guided by intelligence, courage, and integrity. The galaxy would never underestimate humans again.